Hey there. Welcome back to another episode of The PA is In, your podcast for PAs by PAs. Today, I have a special guest, Erin Willard. Erin is a general surgery PA at the VA, and she's going to share with us all of the benefits of what she calls her hidden gem of a unicorn job. She is running the general surgery service for a big in her region VA hospital, and she's going to tell us why she loves it, what the benefits are. We're going to talk about a little bit of the downsides, but mostly how awesome it is to work for the VA and how passionate she is about serving our veterans. So without further ado, here she is, Erin Willard. All right, Erin, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, my name is Erin. I am a 2019 graduate of St. Louis University Physician Assistant Program. And my first job out of school was at the VA working for the general surgery team, which is what I'm doing to this day.
Awesome. I'm really excited to dive into talking about this unicorn role. We met because we ended up chatting about your job, and you were just bragging about all of these wonderful things, these great benefits that you have working for the VA. So tell us kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis as a general surgery PA there at the VA.
So I'll start with saying that my job is not the typical PA job. I'm not saying this to sound like I'm bragging, but I am literally the glue that keeps my department together, just with the basis of the PA or with the VA. A lot of our surgeons come from outside hospitals. We have two major universities that contribute surgeons, and we have a resident team. So I'm really the foundation. I'm the one stable piece of the pie that kind of holds everything together. So with that does come some responsibilities that you wouldn't technically have as a PA. I do have a lot of administrative work, which I actually don't mind. I enjoy it. It gives me a sense of purpose. I feel like it's my service, and it gives me a sense of responsibility that, I'm there to keep it together. So I do a lot of working with the residents. I help with scheduling surgeries. I am the link between surgeons and primary care or surgeons and other specialties. They don't reach out to the surgeons, they reach out to me. It gives me a lot of opportunity to network with the primary care providers, with GI, with cardiology, all of these things. I am almost like the face of our department. They don't know who the colorectal surgeon is, most likely. They know who the PA is, which is me. And so that adds in a lot of unique responsibilities that the typical PA probably doesn't have. And it probably isn't for everybody, but I do enjoy it. And I actually do have a new coworker now. So if she's listening, it'll be two of us now that are kind of the face of the general surgery team.
Nice. So how did you end up in this role? Did you rotate there as a student, or how did you get to where you are?
I actually did. So the long story short, the way that the VA general surgery program is divided is there's two teams. One is the WashU team and one is the SLU team, which are the two major universities. I rotated on the SLU team, and there were two PAs on the team, and not my preceptor, but the other PA, her name was Sarah. Her and I became friends. We really hit it off. We kept in contact. Our personalities just clicked. And I graduated in December of 2019. And so what happened right after December of 2019, but COVID. And I was pregnant. So I graduated pregnant. So by the time I was ready to go looking for the job market, it was March, right at the start of COVID. And I had tons of interviews lined up. And then suddenly, all the interviews canceled. We're like, oh, we're laying off people, which is just such a common misconception as with a pandemic. Why would you lay off healthcare professionals? But we all know that wasn't the case. And so my dream was actually to work in the ER. I was so set on the ER. I did not want to do surgery. I was in my first trimester of pregnancy during this rotation. And my husband just said to me, Erin, you need to be open for opportunity. No one expected a pandemic. You need a job. Just be open. And so Sarah reached out to me out of nowhere and said, hey, Erin, the PA on the other team is retiring. Do you want a job? And I said, absolutely. And so this woman was retiring. She was turning in her letter and she turned in my resume with it. And so
Wow, that's
it was super
amazing.
great. It was super great. It worked out really well. PAs at the VA can be a direct hire, so I didn't have to go through any of the interview process, which really does cut down on the time. It's just I think it's something to do with what our position is. Not all positions can do that. So I had my interview on May 5th. I got the job on May 25th, and I had my daughter on May 29th. So it was
Whoa.
it was the most laid back interview, the easiest interview. I mean, everyone was in masks there because of COVID, but it was just the most laid back, felt right. And I knew what the job was going in, which was good for me. Because it gave me a sense of this is not the job. Like people coming into a general surgery position may not know what they're getting, but since I had rotated, I knew what the job was. So it worked for me. But that's how I got in. And my plan was originally to come in and kind of transfer to a different department. Like once you're in, it's easier to make a lateral move. But I love the job and have no intention of leaving. And it's gotten better actually with time. And I can discuss that later. But I love it. It's not what I imagined I would be, but it's where I need to be. It's the perfect fit for me and my family.
That is so awesome. And I think the fact that you landed that job right out of school while 9+ months pregnant in the middle of a pandemic is incredibly impressive to me. Like, I think a lot of people are out there, well, I got to put in my dues. I got to get a job I don't like. I have to do this, in this way. And you networked effectively. You were in the right place at the right time. And obviously, you impressed that group of PAs when you were on rotation with them to lead to this awesome opportunity that you have now.
Yeah, honestly, I felt like I had like the worst attitude because I was so pregnant in your first trimester, but I guess maybe it was all in my head.
So you just weren't interested in surgery? You were just like, it's not for me.
Not at all. Not at all. No, not at all. I'm open about I have ADHD. I don't stand well. I can walk for miles, but to stand into the same position for a long period of time is very, very challenging for me. It was a very challenging rotation for me. And with my job, I don't have to go into the OR, and I choose not to. But nope, I can if I want, or I don't have to. And so Sarah is still on the other team, and she gets in the OR. She likes it. That's her thing. My attendings are perfectly fine. If I want to get in, great. If I don't, that's fine too. I do lots of clinic and that kind of thing.
And that is the beautiful part about being a PA is that you can say, I'm a general surgery PA, and I can say I'm a general surgery PA, and Sarah can say she's a general surgery PA, and I could say I want to eat, drink, sleep, live in the OR and never leave. And I love the job that lets me to do that. And Sarah's maybe somewhere in the middle, and you're like, nope, I'm happy to see patients, consults, like clinic, coordinating, do these things outside to make sure the patient's experience is amazing when they get to and get out of the OR. And there's so many different things that you can do even in the same specialty. Even in the same specialty at the same organization, you can have two completely different roles, whether you're inpatient or outpatient, what roles that you take on. It's a beautiful thing that I think we sometimes forget once we get out in practice. We think everyone doing urology is doing what I'm doing. Everyone doing, family practice is doing what I'm doing. But especially these higher acuity subspecialties, or when you're doing things that have an inpatient and an outpatient component, there's this beautiful mix and you can find something that works well for you. So are you seeing patients in the clinic? Are you rounding in the hospital? What does a typical day look like for you?
So, very long story short, there's supposed to be two PAs on each team. My team member was actually a nurse practitioner, and she retired incredibly abruptly when I had less than a year at the VA. I was still pretty green. I mean, she just was like, she had like 6 months worth of sick time built up, and she's just like, I'm not coming back. And they couldn't replace her because of her sick time. So at that point, I was running the entire service by myself. And so it was kind of it was survival mode for a really long time. And it wasn't until I went on maternity leave that my boss truly realized how much I was doing and thought, oh my gosh, like, how did you even manage this? Because suddenly they had to do it. And so since coming back, it's been a greater appreciation. And so I've been able to, like, I'm going to be getting my own clinic soon. I'm hopefully going to be rounding on patients more, doing consults, but none of those things I could do when suddenly it was two people doing, or one person doing two people's jobs. So yes, starting in this new year, I will be having a clinic. I will be rounding on patients in the hospital. I'll be going back to more of those things that I had to give up for a short time, just so our service could survive, just so we could continue to provide good care to the veterans.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's a great example of, at work and at home, absence makes the heart grow fond, right? You stepped out to have a baby and to be away, and they said, holy cow, who was doing all this before? And you're like, that would be me.
Yeah,
I was doing that
exactly.
before. That's awesome.
I came back, one of my attendings said, Erin, I have never been so happy in my entire life to see one person ever.
Well, and I mean, I think that attending, when we think about career trajectory and leveraging moving positions or strategic, moves in your career, that attending is one that you want to say, like, great, next time you need something from administration, you want that person to call, right? You say, hey, I need
Yes,
them to do something. And I know you have some pull, like, can you help me in this way? Not in a selfish or self-serving way, but in a way of like, that surgeon recognizes the value that you add to that organization, and they are willing to go to bat for you until the end of time because you've served them well up until this point.
exactly.
So, this might be a very rookie question because I don't even know if we have a VA near us. I've never rotated a VA. I don't even think driven by a VA hospital, at least not that I've known about. So, do you only treat veterans at the VA?
Yes, to the most part. So employees, like I was sick. I don't know if you can hear my voice, but I was sick. And so when I got COVID tested, I was COVID tested at work. So sometimes like little things like that, I get my vaccines at work, that kind of thing. But yes. And then during the COVID pandemic, the VA was the forerunner in getting those vaccines out. We were amazing, and we vaccinated families as well, and kids. So like their children. So for the most part, yes, veterans are we provide the healthcare to just veterans.
If you only take one sheet of paper to your next negotiation, let it be the PA Pay One Sheet. It's a tool designed to walk you through setting up the ideal outcomes, assessing the situation you are negotiating in, and it even includes a reminder of which negotiation skills you can use. Stop what you are doing. Download the one sheet, print it out, fill it out, and literally bring it to the table with you when you are negotiating next. It's designed specifically to work in healthcare settings wherever you are. You can use the PA One Sheet to get the best deal, the biggest raise, and to help your confidence walking into your next negotiation. Head to www.tracybingaman.com/one, that's ONE, to download your free copy of the PA Pay One Sheet and start prepping for your next negotiation today. It's linked in the show notes, but in case you missed it, it's at www.tracybingaman.com/ONE. Awesome. So you have gone on and on when we have talked previously about all of the great benefits of working for the VA. I feel like this is a hidden gem, and we've talked about this, that I was like, I had no idea. It was so amazing. You're telling me this, you get to do teaching of students. So tell me all the great benefits that you have and the wonderful things that you get to do because you're working for the VA.
Okay, and I agree. It is a hidden gem. The first thing I'd like to point out is job security. When everyone else was laying off, not a single person at the VA got laid off. Our hours weren't cut, our benefits weren't cut. In fact, our benefits were actually increased. The job security is phenomenal. We're protected by a union, whether I pay union dues or not. I didn't realize that, but yes, EAs are Title 30. It's called a Title 38 employee, and we get union protection, even though I don't put money into the union. The autonomy that I think that the VA has, it's a little bit less for me in a subspecialty. Because for general surgery, I cover, and remember, I covered this by myself. I cover general surgery, which is like your hernias, lumps, bumps, gallbladders, appies. But I also do colorectal surgery, endocrine surgery, and hepatobiliary surgery, breast surgery, and I think that's all. So I have
That's
all of
all.
these
That's like
very
5 major specialties. That's all.
yes. So for me to be autonomous in all 5 of those areas, it's just not. That's not my role. But I know in primary care, because I know primary care PAs, there's a lot of autonomy, which is good, but it's not also always great for like a new grad. Like they wouldn't recommend a new grad because of all the autonomy. It's a lot, which a lot of physicians don't have. You only need 1 license. It doesn't matter what state it is because the VA is federal. I just need a license in any state. It doesn't matter the state, which is nice because I had 2 licenses and I've let 1 lapse because I don't need it. I just need 1. So what if you have multiple licenses, pick the easiest one or the one that's the cheapest to maintain every year. I'm an hourly position, which I don't think people recognize the benefit of being hourly. When I go home in the evening, I work 4 10s. I'm Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, which I chose. I wanted Wednesdays off from 6 to 4:30. When 4:30 hits, I'm done. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm done. I go home. I don't think about work. I don't take my charts home. I don't scramble. When I'm done, I'm done. If there's something urgent that needs to be worked on, then I get paid for that time. And if it's 15 minutes or more,
Beautiful.
I'm
Yes.
claiming it. And I actually use it as comp time. So I get, more days off. If I'm staying late, I'm claiming it. And it's when you work for the government, it's not like you have these business managers that are, nickel and diming you. My boss is like, oh, did you stay late? Make sure you put it on your time, or there's no time card. Make sure you send it to payroll. Make sure you get paid for that time. Oh, there's a meeting on a Wednesday when I'm not working. Oh, Erin, make sure you let them know you were in this meeting for 30 minutes. It's a different kind of mentality when they're not worried about keeping the doors open. So I think being an hourly position is very rare at our level, but hourly is huge because when I'm done, I'm done.
Yeah.
The
And you don't have
holiday.
to carry
Oh,
that home. Like you don't
yeah.
have to be worrying about if there's coverage and you are not the one answering pages or getting up in the middle of the night. I think that when you leave the hospital and you're off and you're covered, it's a different kind of leave the hospital than when you leave the hospital and you're like, they could call at any minute and I would have to be the one that would answer and go back in or be responsible for that. You're not really off. You're sort of like off light. Like you're like off, but maybe on later. It's not the same.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not worried about charts that didn't get finished because I'll just do them tomorrow when I come in. There's a lot of admin time, I think, in general for the VA. More than you would get in the private sector. Because again, it's not as big on like push people in. But so the hourly thing is huge to me. The 11 paid holidays, guaranteed every year. Now, when Christmas Eve falls on a weekday, we get it off. It's not ever official, but the president always gives us that day off and it's paid. And if you work, let's say, so one year, when Christmas Eve was on a Friday, I still had to work because we had clinic. The only exception is if you have clinic, you can't cancel a clinic. I got paid double time that day. I was going to work that day anyways, but because he declared it a federal holiday, suddenly I got paid twice as much to be there when I already had to be there.
Which just
So
makes it feel
11,
good. It just makes you
yeah,
feel better about working that day.
yeah, exactly. I was already planning on working it, but so it's paid holidays. And if you have to work, it's double time, which again, overtime is time and a half. Going down my list, the health insurance. Now there was it's a little overwhelming. There were like 15 different health insurance plans that I needed to look through. And each one kind of fit a different lifestyle. Like there were some that were better if you were an elderly person and it laid it out, your co-pays, the health insurance plan I had, I barely paid anything to have my son in the hospital. It was a certain plan where like, it was almost 100% covered. I think it was like $500 total between everything to have a baby. And he was a C-section. So you can change it every year based on the needs of your family. That goes the same with the dental. There were several dental options, several vision options. Some of the dental cover up prices for adults. So they have these awesome healthcare benefits. Plus, there's the FSA, which there's two parts to it. There's a child care of $5,000, and the healthcare one apparently went up to $3,000 this year. So for healthcare, there is an automatic cost of living increase every January. This year, it's going to be 4%, which is huge. Usually, it's like 1% to 2%, but it's an automatic increase. There's a lot of increases in pay. I'm not, this is a true story. When I was on maternity leave, all of a sudden I had a paycheck come through that was significantly higher than normal. I thought I was overpaid. Turns out Congress passed some act called the RAISE Act, which raised the ceiling for PAs. So one of the misconceptions is you don't get paid very much at the VA. And that's true. My starting pay was low. But I'll tell you what, in the 2 years I've worked there, I'm already $11,000 higher than what I started.
That's incredible.
And that's not including the raise that I'm going to get starting next year or my cost of living increase. So you start low, but man, do you get high fast. And they just changed the ceiling. So the ceiling, the highest amount of money you can get paid as a PA, to $225,000 a year.
Wow.
And so the way the VA works is there may be some perks, financial perks to certain positions, like maybe if you have like a night differential, but otherwise the pay is across the board. So it doesn't matter if you're in surgery, if you're in primary care, if you're in GI, if you're in cardiology, we're all on the same exact pay scale. So when we all go up at the same rate. It doesn't mean that I'm in surgery, so I get paid more because it's surgery, or I'm in, primary care, so I get paid less because primary care gets paid less, which is silly to me. That seems way more difficult than what I do. It's all the same pay scale, and it all goes up together. And when they raise that ceiling, it all goes up. So the way the pay scale is kind of like a little diagram, and it goes to 220,000. And that's just at this exact moment in time. So when we go to this cost of living increase, that's going to go up. It's going to be 220,000, plus an additional 4%, and then everyone moves up. And so it kind of makes it a level playing ground, so you don't feel pressured to work in a field you don't want to work because it's paid more.
Yes, it's beautiful.
So I love that. So I'll go into kind of the benefits. Those are the financial benefits. Oh, there's one more. And this one is kind of hit and miss. So this is the most vital one. And the reason why I really took this job is the EDRP. Now, we all know about the 10-year service where you get your loans forgiven, and obviously the VA qualifies for that, but there's this thing called the EDRP. Currently, PAs don't qualify anymore, but they reevaluate it every year, and it's basically for positions that are hard to retain and hard to recruit. And so when I hired in, it qualified for PAs, and every year I get $40,000 towards my student loans, up to $40,000 for 5 years. So it's a $200,000 benefit. How it works is however much I pay towards my student loan in a year, I submit that, they cut me a tax-free check. So every year I make sure and max out at the $40,000. I'm actually getting ready to turn it in. I paid $40,000 towards my loans. I am going to put $40,000, or I'm going to get a $40,000 check, and I'm going to apply it again. So at the end of 5 years, 6 years, because the first year, you go a year in, I'll have $200,000 of my loans paid off, and all I've done is gone to work. I don't have to stay at the VA. I can leave whenever I want because you're being paid retrospectively. So it's a huge benefit that I think will come back to PAs. It kind of changes every year. They just fell off the list. I'm hoping they get back on. And some positions I see are still qualified. Depends on the position. Some benefits that I think people don't understand about working in the VA. Now, I work in St. Louis, which is the largest VA in our region, and it's still a small hospital, and it's a family. And the networking that I can do within the hospital, I have contacts in GI, I have contacts in cardiology, I have contacts in radiology, in the lab, in the women's health center, in primary care. There are so many people that I know because I teams with them, but I've never actually met in person, but it's like I know them. My favorite story is there was a primary care provider. She had a very unique name. And my son started going to kindergarten, And I saw the list of the parents, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Annalise Flynn. There can't be more than one Annalise Flynn. And I met her at a function, and sure enough, she was a primary care provider, and now we're great friends. And I had teamed with her multiple times because primary care and surgery work together. And I think that is such a huge benefit because, I found a guy's cancer had come back on his CT scan. I used to also cover vascular. It was a vascular scan of his AAA. I don't cover vascular anymore, but I found his cancer. I was able to, within 5 minutes, find his primary care, find his oncologist, and reach out to both directly and tell them, hey, my CT scan shows his cancer has returned in his liver. And when you're in the private sector, you don't have that kind of a network. You don't have the ability to just team somebody. And I love that about my job. If I need to get something done, I will reach out to them directly. I have a patient that needs a pulmonology consult. I reached out to his pulmonologist directly. And, I was like, hey, Dr. So-and-so, my patient really needs surgery. Can you get him in? Oh, yeah, sure, Erin, I can get him in. There's none of this jumping through hoops of having to place the consult. And because I did place the consult and it was denied, we'll see him in 4 weeks. And I'm like, oh, no, we're not waiting 4 weeks. I'm going to reach out directly by some person that didn't even know this patient. And I think working at any kind of a small hospital like that, it is like a family. Employees will, donate their time. And one of our MSAs got breast cancer, and we all kind of donated some leave so she could take time to get her mastectomy. And it really is like a family. When I came back from maternity leave, I had lots of people like, Erin, you're back. We're so glad you're back, that I haven't even worked directly with, but I see them in the cafeteria, or, I need to talk to them because I need to turn in medical records. It's a small family, and I love it. And I think mine is the biggest VA in our region. So I can't even imagine what it's like in the smaller VAs in our region.
Yeah.
So that also helps with networking. I work on a resident team. I see residents. I work very closely with them. You build connections so that if I ever wanted to leave the VA or I wanted to go to a different VA, I recognize their names because I work with them every single day for a month or two at a time. You can't buy that kind of networking. And that's what the VA is like. It's such a small community. People know each other. And I think I wish that they taught us more about networking in PA school because it is so important in anything that you do. I can have students. We love students of the VA. It's a teaching hospital. So being able to have students is great and not have to worry about it and to be able to give them a great experience. I think also, and this is one of those, what I'm going to talk about next is one of those things where it's good. And then I think also frustrating sometimes. But when we have our veterans, we treat our veterans very well. And I want that to be known. We want to provide them with the best possible care. And sometimes they don't always feel that way because there's bureaucracy. But I'll have veterans that'll say, Erin, I need this surgery, but I don't have a ride. Oh, you don't have a ride? Sure. Let me help you with that. You don't have somebody to pick you up from your surgery? Sure, we'll just let you stay the night again and you can drive yourself home. Homeless veterans, those kinds of things. We have social workers and case managers, and they don't have to necessarily worry about the same financial burdens that they do in the private sector. You're going to get your surgery. And if we can't provide it at the VA, we're going to send you to a hospital that can. And all of my surgeons, with the exception of one, is affiliated with a major university. So they are, if you're from the St. Louis region, you know that Barnes Hospital is a major university. WashU is huge. And all of the surgeons on the one team are all from WashU. The other surgeons are from St. Louis University Hospital. And then the one physician who's full-time is a graduate from WashU. So we have high quality providers. We can get people in for surgery way faster than private sector. I can guarantee it. I can get patients. So my mom recently was diagnosed with breast cancer. 6 weeks she had to wait for surgery. 6 weeks. I know that these patients are coming down the pipeline ahead of time because, again, we're all connected. I get them in. Sometimes the Wednesday after the breast clinic. So after their official appointment, the following Wednesday, I make sure I block out that time for them. I mean, you can't You can't get that. No amount of money can even buy that, I don't think, in private sector, where you come to clinic on a Friday, we talk about your breast cancer, we talk about your plan, and then on Wednesday, we're going to take it out. But even with the hernias, we can turn it around, and then they can call and be like, oh, you know what? This date doesn't work for me anymore. Oh, sure. No problem, sir. We can get you in this day. Or we'll have veterans that forget they have surgery. We're not going
That
to make
happens
them
everywhere.
wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
sure. How about next week? The veterans are like, oh, you can already get me in already. Yeah, that's what we're here for. We only serve you. And we're all very, very, very passionate about serving our veterans and giving them the best possible care that we can. And it makes my life easier knowing I don't have to be like, oh, sir, it's going to be 2 months before we can get you in, which, I love being able to do that and to have that kind of flexibility.
It's interesting because so much of what you're saying is a little bit at odds with what little I had of prior assumptions about the VA. Like I was imagining like the exact opposite, like long waits, hard to get in, like lots of like obstacles, like just and I don't know where that came from. It just exists in my mind. But it sounds like truly the exact opposite is the care that patients are getting when they come to see you guys.
It is. I can't speak for other clinics, but because our clinics are resident run, so we have, 4 to 6 providers at any given time, I will literally get a patient in on whatever day and whatever time they want, as long as we have clinic. There's no waiting. If there's waiting, it's not on our surgery end. We're having, it could be a scheduler problem, or maybe you're not answering the phone. But there's been times where I've told patients, hey, just come to clinic tomorrow. How about what time works for you? 9:00. Okay, great. Come in. I'll just make sure your appointment's in for you. We will overbook. We never turn anyone away. We have patients that are sometimes 2 and 3 hours late. And as long as the provider is still there, we will see them. We will see them. And because we have that ability with the resident team to be able to do that. Now, obviously, without a resident team and you don't have enough providers, that's not always the case. But there's a lot of services with resident teams. And so, we get them in. And if they're late, or if, sometimes we even had patients show up and we're like, oh, you don't have an appointment, but you need to be seen. Okay, let's just get you in. We'll take care of it.
You
The
guys
only
are
time
like the most accommodating office ever. That would never happen in my
I mean,
office.
we're
We'd be
there
like,
to serve
sorry,
the
no.
veterans. The
Yeah.
only time we ever turn them away is if we don't have clinic and we don't have a provider available. Like if all of our surgeons are in the OR, because there's been times where they've come on like a Tuesday. We don't have any clinics on Tuesday. It's the only day we don't have a clinic of some sort. And we're like, well, if they're all in the OR, then we have to turn them away. But it's only because we literally don't have, a provider to see them. But if they come, let's say they're a colorectal problem and they come on an endocrine surgery day, okay, we'll see you. We'll all of our surgeons are general surgeons. They're all trained to at least be able to triage it, to be able to be like, okay, because usually if they're coming in like that, it's something more urgent. And then, the surgeons are calling each other like, hey, what do you think about this? I've got your guy in with this, small bowel obstruction. They're all calling and it gets done. We don't, we make it work with our clinics. Even if it's not the right clinic, we will still see you.
Sure. I mean, and I think what I'm hearing is that you're saying, the VA sees the value of PAs and doesn't make them fight for getting paid what they're worth. It's generous with freezes. You have a good quality of life where you have great benefits, where you're able to see your kids, and you're offering this high level exceptional care to your patients. But, and I think this is a really big but, because that's true a lot of places, like right there, like that's true a lot of places. You're offering this high level of care to your patients, but it's not negatively impacting your quality of life.
Yeah, not at all. I don't have to worry about, the prior authorizations. I hear lots about how obnoxious those are. I don't have those. I need an MRI. I order an MRI. I need a CT scan. I order a CT scan. I don't have to worry about, making sure my documentation matches perfectly to make sure that it's covered, that the patient doesn't get charged.
I mean, I think everyone listening who has done a prior auth this week is like, I'm going to the VA, like hands down. If I don't have to deal with private insurers anymore. Yes.
I've heard so many like horror stories about those, and I can't even, imagine having to deal with that. And that alone, just knowing that you don't have to jump through these hoops to get your patient the care that they need, the medication that they need. It's huge to me. So I don't know what that's like.
Well, it's a
This is the
huge
only
pain
job
in
I've
the
ever
ass.
had.
It's a huge pain in the ass is what it is. It's a
I
pain.
can imagine.
You feel like you're treating the patient, but you have to get permission. So you're like, this is what you need. And then someone's like, is it though? And you're like, yes, it is. This is what we decided as a team, as a provider, the patient and I, like, this is what they need. And they're like, let's double check. And it's just like,
Exactly.
all of this. And I'm like, are you the provider? No, like you're the insurer. I'm supposed to prescribe stuff and you're supposed to pay for it. And they're like, no, that's not how this is going to work. We're going to do it this other way. It's extremely frustrating as a provider and it's infuriating as a patient because you trust your provider, you've decided on a course of action, and then suddenly, your company says, no, before you get that CAT scan, we have to get an x-ray. And the provider's like, I'm not looking for something that's going to show up on an x-ray. They're like, it's the rules. So then you do some
Yes.
testing that's sort of erroneous so that you can get the box checked so that you can get the actual test that you need to diagnose the actual problem that you're treating.
Yes. All of the above. And I'm not saying that there aren't, sometimes our radiologists, I feel like maybe step outside of their realm and they try to tell the vascular surgeons what tests they really need. And then they have to go back and forth, but it's not an insurance company. It's another person, it's more like
colleague.
people. It depends on the radiologist, those kinds of things, but it's not an insurance company. That's not a doctor or not a provider or not a PA who doesn't even probably have a medical degree trying to tell you what you need to have.
I am so excited to share all about a new free live training that I've put together for you. It's the 4 secrets of top income earning PAs, the things that they know that you don't know. If you can internalize these 4 things, make the necessary mindset shifts, and take the steps to execute on them, you will be able to scale your PA income without having to change jobs, specialties, or cities. It's a live workshop style masterclass where I'm teaching these secrets and sharing about my own success negotiating for better pay and better hours clinically as a PA. Head to tracybingaman.com/masterclass to choose the date and time that works best for you. It's of course linked in the show notes, but in case you missed it, that's www.tracybingaman.com/masterclass. So it also sounds like in your experience in the last couple of years that they have adapted to changing circumstances. So whether that was your colleague leaving suddenly or you going on maternity leave and then realizing just how much you were doing, is that when you said, hey, first of all, they realized the amount of work that you're doing and the value that you were adding. And they said, whoa, this is too much work for one person. We're going to hire someone in, which is amazing. But also it sounds like you said, I want to do more of this and less of that. And they said, okay, how did that go? Like, how did you approach that? Was it hard to get changes made?
So it was the last year was all kind of crazy. Now, one thing, and no job is 100% perfect. So the VA, is notorious for how long it takes to get hired in. And that unfortunately is true. However, they are fixing it. They had a mass hiring event where anyone who was getting hired, they just did it all at once and boom, we were in because we needed people. So they are working on fixing that because it is a notoriously long process. So my coworker was offered the job in March. Now, remember, I got pregnant in November, let them know right away because I knew I was by myself. We got her, there was some bureaucracy with my other coworker still being technically employed until the end of January, which, was nothing the VA, wasn't the VA's fault. It's policy is policy. So she couldn't have technically started until October. She didn't start till December because she had to put her time in. But so that's one of the, I don't want to say myths because that is in fact true, but they are working on it. And I appreciate that. They had this mass hiring event. They're trying to expedite things. But anyways, throughout this whole process, I was trying to prepare my team of the surgeons because it was basically me, the residents who switch every month.
Who don't know what's going on, who don't know what's going on,
trying really
hard, but they don't know how things work. Yep.
And then my general surgery team with my collaborating physician is amazing. She came into this job the October before the November I got pregnant. So she hasn't, she just had her 1 year in this role. And so she's trying to figure out how to run this service. And so once I was gone, that's when they realized, oh my goodness, holy cow, things are falling apart. And I heard about it from everyone. And all of a sudden I'm like checking my email, and I've got emails where our chief of surgery is emailing, asking anybody for help. Who would like some overtime? And so they were offering people overtime to come and help. And so they are changing. Now, sometimes, and I think this is probably true for a lot of places, you kind of got to fail before, they recognize the problem, but they recognized it very quickly. And within a very short amount of time, they're bringing in nurses on light duty to help. They're bringing in people paying the overtime. It happened that fast. And they were able to do that. And that's what I appreciate is sometimes, and it's frustrating, but I think the moments where I was frustrated, I had to remind myself, like, this would probably be the same no matter where I go. If they can pay one person to do the job, then they're not going to rush as much to get that second person in. And so it's kind of one of those things where it was hard because I wasn't going to let my service fail. But as soon as I was gone, and suddenly it was physically impossible for all the surgeons to operate and do all this work and to have the residents, they are changing, they are adapting. It's just a little bit slower maybe than the private sector, but it's more meaningful, I think.
I used to work with a surgeon who would say sometimes they have to realize it's broken before they're going to be willing to help us fix it, because we would be like drowning on call, just the worst. And I would say, what are we going to do about this? And he's like, we have to fail, right? We have to say, like, those calls didn't get answered. Like, those patients didn't get the best care. And that is because we need this change. And he's like, it has to break. And someone who has the ability to fix it, or to hire someone to fix it, or to make the changes to fix it, needs to realize that it's broken. Otherwise, you're like, it's really busy, I'm really having a hard time. And they say, keep up the good work.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And I try to put things into perspective, and being on the PA Moms group it's easy to see how other people are living, and it's helped me to appreciate my job more because, yeah, I was pretty frustrated. I mean, I was pregnant, I was hormonal, I was tired, I was overworked, but I always felt appreciated, which was huge. And I think that's probably going to be team specific. I can't guarantee that every team at every VA everywhere is as wonderful as mine, but I always felt appreciated. I always have felt like a part of the team, and that is huge to me. I think leadership in general really makes it. And our leader that we have, she's wonderful, and she's nitty gritty. She's like, we got to do what we're going to do to get things done. And so when I came back, it was wonderful because when I came back, I just assumed I was going to take back over all these responsibilities I had. Yep. And she's like, no, Erin, the residents can do that. They're capable of doing that. And I'm like, are you sure? I don't mind doing these things. No, the residents can do it. And the residents were like, well, Erin. And she's like, no, Erin is not doing those things. We are going to open up her time so she can get the clinic she's been asking for and she's never been able to have because, she was by herself. Yeah, we're having a meeting in January where me and my new coworker and my CP are going to sit down and talk about our clinic and talk about what we want out of the position. And she's wonderful because she wants to give that. She wants to be able to kind of put me, I like the administration portions of my job, so I don't want to give them all up. But I would like to have some more clinical and to be able to get back to the clinical aspect because it feels good to be able to do that, but not have to do it all the time for me. And the coworker that I brought in, I picked her because I told her, I said, look, there's a lot of administration. Are you okay with that? She's like, that's exactly what I want. I said, perfect. So this job is not perfect for everybody, but I feel like there is a job at the VA that could be perfect for everybody. You just got to find the job that it is. But that's kind of how it worked is I brought it up and I said, this is what I want to do. And I have the right CP. And the VA is kind of one of those things where I don't know if it's like the wild, wild west, like, hey, let's just do it. Let's just make it happen.
See how it goes, try it and see how it works. So if someone is listening and they're like, Erin, you have convinced me, I'm going to start looking for a job at the VA in my part of the country, where do they go to do that?
usajobs.gov. But I also recommend networking. So, like I said, PAs do not have to go through the whole interview process. They can be what's called a direct hire. I was a direct hire. My coworker was a direct hire. Basically, I found out we were going to finally be hiring. I reached out to a few PAs, got them in, and it's an expedited process. So I think with a lot of things, but especially with the VA, knowing somebody is huge. It's kind of that older mentality where, your resume could be super long, but knowing somebody, because if the job's not posted, then you don't know about it. And if the job's posted, you can put your resume on, but then you're one resume of many. So I recommend we have so if you're listening and you're somebody that wants to work for the VA, and I will say, you really need to have a passion for veterans. They really do stress that. We are insanely veteran oriented. I'm not just saying that for the veterans out there. I mean it. It is about the veterans. And so they can be a challenging population sometimes. We have lots with PTSD and all of those things that come with going to war. And so having that benefit, it makes the job even that much more rewarding. But you want to find somebody. If you're somebody that wants to work for the VA, we have a VA PA moms group. We also have a
Okay.
civil servants PA moms group that's more than just the VA, but other jobs kind of in that same realm, working for the DoD and that sort of thing. But I know that I've seen PAs on there that are like, hey, I've got my interview at the PA coming or at the VA coming up. What do you recommend? Those sorts of things. Because if you're in that group, when my position came open, I posted it on my PA moms and STL group. Hey, this position is coming available. Who's interested? Because if you find that, sometimes you can work around that whole hiring process, which gives you a better foot in the door. Because for ours, we just had a few people instead of the whole slew.
And is there a way to look up like where the VAs are? Like, I don't know. I think there's one north of me, but I don't exactly know where. Is there like a
There
directory?
must be. Um, I know we have one at least in every state. Now, I'm originally from Michigan, so I know that Ann Arbor is a big area. Because there's every state would have the hospitals, but they're
Yeah, I
not
mean, you
always
could just
well.
Google like VA hospitals in Pennsylvania, right? VA
Yeah.
hospitals in New York. Like, I'm sure you could find them, but
So my dad's a veteran, and the main hospital I think is in Ann Arbor in Michigan. But there are clinics, like he's got a clinic in Flint. There's a clinic in Saginaw. For those people listening that are from Michigan and know the geography. So they have like primary care clinics that are located out from the state, and I think they're, at least in our state, they're called CBOCs. Like in Missouri, we have one in Washington, which is an hour from our VA, but it's a primary care clinic that's an hour from us. That's still 100% VA. It's just a clinic that's outside of our hospital for those people that don't live close to the hospital. So even if you're not close to the hospital, there's still primary care positions. And I'm not sure if there's other kinds of positions in there. I know there's like women's health ones and that sort of thing.
well, this has been awesome. I love both your passion for veterans and your love for what you do. Everyone listening can be inspired by the fact that you are this passionate and this excited about what you do for work. It's very inspiring to me. I'm sure it is inspiring our listeners. So, someone is saying, hey, I love Erin. I want to get in contact with her. Is the best way to email you, or how can they find you?
You can email me. My email is erw080313 or you can find me on Facebook. I'm listed under Erin Numerick, Numerick, space Willard, Willard. You can send me a DM. You can friend request me, anything like that. I am happy to really. I don't know. I'm sure not every job at the VA is perfect, but I look at what it could be and I look at what it is, and for me, I'm happy, I'm not stressed out, and I really feel like I'm making a difference in someone's life,
Oh,
which
that is
is
so, so
hopefully what we're all
important.
here to do. And I have a lot of veterans in my most all of my uncles actually are veterans in one field or another. So I get a lot of joy from being able to know that, maybe not all VAs are perfect, but my service is going to provide the best possible care to veterans that we can possibly do. And I personally can ensure that because I have that, that ability within my service.
Yeah. Yeah, you have the power to make that impact. Yeah, absolutely. You are actually impacting the way that you are serving those patients, and that matters so much. Well, thank you, Erin, for taking the time. I know you have a lot of little kids running around, so thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me plug for the VA because I think it is a hidden gem. So I really appreciate you
Absolutely.
letting me do this.
Oh my goodness. There is nothing quite like listening to someone who is passionate about what they do for work and who they serve. Erin left me feeling like there is more that I can be doing and that I can be making sure that our team is taking the very best care of the patients that walk through our door at our clinic. Thank you, as always, for listening to The PA is In. If this episode helped you at all, maybe it inspired you to make a change at work. Maybe it inspired you to change something about your practice. Heck, maybe it even inspired you to apply for a position at the VA in your town. I want to say that if this episode helped you, could you please do me a favor? Please, please, and leave a review, 5 stars, and a description on iTunes. It is invaluable to a show that is growing and reaching more PAs day by day, week by week. That is because of the reviews that listeners like you are leaving on iTunes. I am so glad this show is meeting you where you are and it is serving you well. Thank you for tuning in to the show by PAs for PAs, where we help you to design your life so that you can live long and prosper. It's your turn to get inspired, take effective action, and become one of those hidden gem unicorn PAs just like Erin. I want you to be someone who loves your job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and financial freedom. Until next time, this PA is out.